So we're halfway through Ephesians. We've done chapters 1 to 3 and we're about to move in chapters 4 to 6. But this is a bit of a shift change point in the letter. And what we've seen in chapters 1 to 3 is we've really seen this very theological approach to Paul's writing. He's really been focusing on this big vision, this big picture of what God is doing, the eternal purposes of God. And he's talking about what God has done for us. And this phrase, in Christ, appears again and again, as we know. And what he outlines in this vision is a vision for a new humanity, a new type of people. And that is the church. And he says the church is the culmination of everything that God has been working towards throughout eternity. It is the new society that will demonstrate the manifold wisdom, chapter 3 verse 10, of God. It is the expression of the heart of God outworked. A group of people living together as one is the expression of the great wisdom of God. And so we see this very theological, very in-depth section of the letter, and then he completely shifts gears and says, well, okay, so that's the big picture, that's the vision. Well, okay, we talk about it, but how does this new church go about living and outworking all the things that really I've been talking about? And so instead of being very theological, it's actually very practical, and it's sort of focusing a lot on standards, about walking worthy, about living. And instead of it's what God has done for us, it's about what we must do for God. It's about the way we live in response to what he's done for us. And a new humanity requires a new kind of holiness. And so what we see and what we're going to see in chapters 4 to 6 is really Paul outlining a new standard for the church, a new way for the church to work. And so as we look at chapter 4 verses 1 to 3, we're going to move in that theme. So we open up Ephesians chapter 4 verses 1 to 3. And Paul starts by urging them. It says, I urge you. It says, I urge you. And he's basically saying, I'm a prisoner for the Lord. I'm a prisoner for the Lord. All this stuff I've been talking about, this big vision through chapters 1 to 3, I'm willing to be imprisoned for that vision. I believe so much, that it's so important. It's all about what God is all about. And therefore, I'm urging you, I'm saying I'm willing to be in chains for this. So therefore, I'm urging you to walk in a manner worthy of such a calling. I want you to walk worthy of all of the things that I've just been talking about through chapters 1 to 3. And that's our first question, really. Is our desire to walk worthy of really the amazing gift of God and his grace and his kindness in Jesus? Is our desire to walk worthy? Are we opening our hearts and our lives to him as we think about ourselves this morning? And what he's now going to outline is, well, what does it look like? What does it look like to walk worthy of this wonderful calling? Well, he identifies 5 things: humility, gentleness, patience, bearing with one another, and love. And I suppose you could include a 6th, which is eager to maintain unity. And so the first thing is interesting, that the number one thing he identifies is humility. Now, we may think, oh yes, humility, that's really important, but we have to understand how countercultural, almost how odd it would have sounded to a Greek society to say humility is the number one thing you need to focus on. Not about being the big man or being proud or being, about yourself. Really, you've got to see others as more important than yourself. This idea of humility and Christian unity, all right, is founded on humility. Paul's been saying, this is the vision, my vision for this church, this grand people who are all going to be one in Jesus. And if it's going to happen, you have to be humble. And we have to challenge ourselves. Are we walking humbly? And then he says gentleness. Now these two kind of go together, really, this pair. You've got humility and gentleness. And another, almost a better word here, could be defined as tenderness. And tenderness is strength, right, that's under control, right? When someone is tender, you can have a very strong, powerful man who holds a little baby in his hands. He has the strength to dominate, to crush that baby, but he holds it gently. And actually, as Christians, it's the strong ones, the mature ones, that therefore need to operate in humility, knowing that they may know more, they may be in the right, but they behave in a gentle and a tender way. And then we've got our next pair here, humility and bearing with one another. Now, another word for this could be long suffering. So we need to be, if we are going to be one in Jesus, if we're going to be this kind of church that Jesus has died for, then really we need to operate and work from a position of patience. We need to be long suffering. And I want to challenge us this morning. Are we suffering long with people? Because it's very easy to get annoyed at people quickly in the church. People don't do what you expect them to do. People in your family are irritating. They haven't learned. You've told them 20 times, they still haven't listened, right? But we are encouraged to be patient and bear with one another. And how should we do that? We should do that in love. Do you remember we talked about in chapter 3, we should be rooted and grounded in love. We should be rooted and grounded in this love. And so Paul's repeating it. Being in love, and we should be eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. We should be striving for unity, and we strive for unity because we're humble, because we're gentle, because we're patient, because we're long-suffering, because we're loving. We are eager to maintain unity. So this is our challenge this morning, really. Does this look like us? Is this me? Am I living, walking worthy? Am I walking worthy of chapters 1 to 3? Am I walking worthy of that beautiful thing that Christ has done for us?